Hey everyone. So we are live streaming after the first time in a long time on the Fracture channel. It's actually a little bit wild, especially the last time I remember watching the stream as a player. So to be on this side is a little crazy. How is everyone? So we are going to do a short little audio test just to make sure everything's good. All right. 1 second here. Okay. I already see quite a few of you in chat. Real quick, still doing audio test. Will, Ethan.
Yeah, everything's seems to be sounding great so far.
How do I sound? Do I sound good?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's get started. We'll have this very dynamic. We're a reading chat as well, and we'll take this much more casual than our videos that we've been putting in Discord. So to start with, wanted to do a studio introduction. So I'm Duncan Davis, and I lead Happy Cauldron Games. If anyone's unfamiliar, most people are unfamiliar as we're a small indie studio. We recently acquired Fracture Online, the IP, from Dynamite Studios, and we have roughly 8 people, including some of the founders, working for us under the Happy Cauldron banner. And so a couple are joined here. Will?
Hey, my name's Will, also known as Mort Vieira. I'm the community manager, so I'm going to be spending a lot of time working with the community and making sure everybody's heard and making sure that we're giving out consistent communications.
Yeah, and Will, you've been around the community for a while just as a player, right?
Oh yeah, I've been around since late 2021, so one of the last alpha waves, I think, before Gamingo did their early release.
So you've seen a few things over the time here in Fractured. And then we also have,
Just a few.
yeah, we also have Ethan, which is filling the role of our art director. So Ethan.
Hey everybody, how you guys doing? My name is Ethan, also known as Lucklin for the win, and I'm here just to help achieve the vision that Duncan wants to see and going forward with. And I think you guys are going to be pretty excited over what we've got so far in the short amount of time that we've been doing it. I'm excited. I have goosebumps, so I'm ready.
Awesome. Yeah, so there are more behind the scenes, and we're starting to pull them out from behind the monitors a little bit. So going forward, what you'll see is a lot more communication, live streams, YouTube videos, Discord messages. In our Discord, we've talked about the communication channel. So I want to start with a couple things around kind of project and project vision. And so I want to start with what this project is not. So one, this project is not a triple A studio, double A studio. We are an indie studio. That means that we're scrappy, involved in the community, and really we've put the player first and foremost in all of our designs. And sometimes that doesn't mean that we necessarily agree or enjoy that, but if largely the community has a particular feature or balancing, and we feel like it's best to move the community along, then we'll do that. Not all the time, especially when it comes to PvP and PvE in these big sandboxes, do we all play everything. So we leverage the community to get that feedback. The second thing that we are not, this project will not at any point in time be a crypto or NFT project. In fact, I will delete the project before that ever happens. Like, it's just not something that will ever happen. I see the comments online all the time, and I think it's hilarious. I think Bitcraft even did an April Fool's joke, and I'm not doing an April Fool's joke. There's no crypto, no NFT. The world has had enough of that.
Yeah, that would not have gone over well. So I'm glad you did.
So dispelling all of those thoughts. As a player, I've seen too many of those projects. I've been a part of many projects that died, and all the years I've spent into projects go away. And I've seen some of them resurrected as a ghoul of what they used to be, and that's just not going to happen here. So we're going to do our absolute best. So to start with, the some of the top questions that I've seen out there around the project is around funding. So I personally am investing and have funded this entire endeavor going forward. So obviously that, I am not an oil tycoon or anything like that. I'm a player that happens to have found some small success, and that success is being spent turning Fracture Online into a success going forward. So what the project vision is. So the project vision is to take Fracture Online and keep what makes Fracture Online from a lore perspective and a settings perspective unique. When we look out there at the different games, there's something about Fracture Online and the immersive gathering of resources and processing, the ability to build with everyone, that social dynamic. And there's a lot of different pieces too. But the project vision is to build that home. We've grown up playing games like Ultima Online and Star Wars Galaxies and all of these other MMOs, the social sandboxes. And what Dynamite Studios built, at the core, the bones were really, really good. And I think a lot of us found that Fractured Online had potential. And over time, various history, things like that, we ended up in this situation. But going forward, we can continue to bring out those best things. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today, but also every week. So we'll be constantly communicating. And I would say the number one motto that we have in this is that we will be slow in development, but we will focus on the quality and community first and foremost. So when you see some of these images, when you see some of the things that we talk about in Discord, know that we try to spend that time making sure that we're hitting that mark and getting feedback, because honestly, we don't have time to redo the world, and we have to be very diligent about what we put in scope. Chat. Oh. I am curious, Will, you've been around for a while. Do you mind sharing a short perspective on, already how you've seen the community as we've talked through some of these things?
Well, being hmm, directly honest, there was a long period where there was no communication, and the community had started getting bitter and more toxic. And by that, I mean people were upset, they were angry, they had every reason to be. Since the acquisition, with the increased communication, we've seen that kind of fold. Everybody's seeing this new perspective where everybody's excited about the changes. They're getting communication not weekly, but just about every day from me, you, or other team members that we have. And we're getting a lot of community interaction. So we have this positivity that's blossoming within the community. A lot of people are being active, a lot of people are asking questions. Um, so there's been this huge change.
Yeah, and I think this is a kind of a good segue into, if you've been around the community for a while, this is going to be a new era, a new start. There's things that are going to change. Some things will change from what you maybe loved, and maybe things that you didn't love about the game. And that feedback is important. We're working on adjusting the Discord and other various ways to provide that feedback of the current instance of Fracture Online, and then as we go forward into testing and things like that. So your input as a veteran in the community will be read. I've read every bit of chat in all the channels since this was even a possible thought between Dynamite Studios and HCG. So as a veteran, expect to see things change, and we want to hear your feedback on it. If you're new and you're just now hearing of Fracture Online, what an interesting time to hop into a project. It is changing drastically, and what we would love to hear is where you come from on your games and what maybe you liked about some of the old games that you used to play. Everyone has the nostalgia lenses, but we are creating new. Things will change and be a part of it. You can experience existing version of Fractured Online on Steam and on the website. There will be a period of time in which there will not be the current instance of Fractured Online available. We're still working through timing and the event for that, but there will be a focus on redeploying architecture and making the launch as successful as possible. And we'll continue to keep everyone up to date. So one of the things I get asked about already, and I want to clarify, is around roadmap and milestones. We will be putting out milestones, hopefully in about the next week. There's some pretty big things that we're still deciding. And I hesitate to put out any type of roadmap because if you're involved in the community and watching our updates, you'll know exactly where we are against those milestones and what milestones are needed before we relaunch. And so as you consume the content that we put out, you'll pretty much have your finger on the pulse and know roughly when that's going to be. Right now, we're still a ways away. We'll give some rough time boxes because, like I said, don't have unlimited funding in this. There are some things in the old lore a long time ago that did happen. Fractured Online was originally a Kickstarter project, and I've contributed to many Kickstarter projects as a player. And I have seen many Kickstarters not follow through on those promises. And that's always rough. I think over time, people have learned that you just throw your money away into Kickstarter and you hope that it turns into something. But being a player and throwing money into the fire that never returns, I wanted to go back and spend some time. There's a lot of content in those Kickstarters, a lot of, to be honest, crazy promises out there. And I'm working through all of those. But I did want to share some updates, and we'll hop over, assuming everything moves over smoothly. I wanted to hop over and start to discuss the beginnings of making the Kickstarters, the rewards, worth it. Right now, most of anything in those rewards just never materialize. And I feel that is a key part in how we rebuild that trust. If we're going to take the mantle of Fracture Online, then we need to, rebuild that. And so I'm going to start with probably the hardest part and let you in on the current plans around at least the armor side of it. When we talk about like titles and some of the other things, those are easy to implement. But the most time-consuming and most expensive are its creation of assets. And so to start with, the armors will be made in all the variations. And we've already begun to create the assets inside of the art pipeline to support that. They will be sprinkled throughout the normal asset development lifecycle. So it's not something that we can focus on initially because they will be presented as skins inside of the game. And we still need to make new armors and change all those things, and we'll talk about that later. So for each of the armors, there'll be a period of time, and you'll start to learn as we fit these skins into the pipeline and schedule. You'll start to learn a kind of cadence for that, and we'll always keep and tease the next ones. But I'll walk through a couple of them, and just so you can start to see that initial thought of how some of these armors feel. And so here is an initial sketch, and we know it's just a sketch, but it is important in our limited resources that we spend the right time in the right place to start to get the feel of the armor. And these sketches really start to nail down the feel of these armors. So on the left is the king armor, and on the right is the soul armor. And I'm most excited for the soul armor. I think there's a lot that we can do to make it feel very ethereal-like. Words are difficult.
Oh, they can be sometimes, but I mean, I think that this armor looks great, honestly, especially for concept.
And so we will be making these images available inside the Discord and the various channels so that if you were a backer during that time, you'll see these evolve and eventually be able to leverage these. And then there's 3 more that are currently in the kind of sketching phase, the concept phase, and that is the High Druid armor, the Duke armor, and the Warlord armor. I always ran a Slayer set in Melee when playing Fractured Online, and if I was to say the closest skin that excites me the most out of this initial batch is going to be the Warlord. I think the one thing that people have not also seen is capes. Each one of these has like complementary capes that really accent the theme of the armor. So I did see a question. Are you planning on keeping the current coloring options through the wardrobe for these armor sets? We'll actually cover that just shortly. I think you'll like where this is going. And I will respond to this as well. And then we'll get back on track. Can you share what about FO made you believe enough to spend your hard-earned personal money in this project? Yeah, that is a good one. I value the social elements of a sandbox above nearly all else. The ability for us to come together as a group and build a town or just some type of, settlement together, and then go out and do content, even though the PvE was limited. And oftentimes I was getting zerged. Anytime I was trying to do anything non-PvP related, I had a lot of fun going out with my old friends, gathering and crafting and processing, and making armor sets, and then going out and losing those armor sets. There's just something about the need for everyone to participate together. And this is not just unique to FO. There's also plenty of other games that have built that foundation around the social aspect. So when I say, what is important to me in it, I saw an opportunity where so many systems, and everyone will be exposed to this over time, so many systems are really in depth to provide the opportunity for immersion that never really got surfaced in a way. And so when evaluating all of these things on the table, and sometime or another you can chat with Hellcracks, and he and I have been developing the games together for a long time, and I went over this a lot mentally about each of these systems. I diagrammed everything out just to make sure that everything was going back to the social element of how players spend time together. That was a complete tangent. um, I'm also curious, Will, as you've been around, what is that thing for you?
I mean, for me, a lot of it's nostalgia because when I started playing MMOs, it was '97. It was Ultima Online, which everybody gets into Fractured Online automatically thinks of Ultima Online. And then we've got these sieges that are happening. We've got opt-in PvP now. We used to have open world PvP. There were just
Oh, I remember.
so many great elements that drew people in, and then there was a lot of community being built when I joined. Um, so there's a lot there for me emotionally as the social aspect as well. And then I actually want a game where I can build out my own digital identity. So I want to be able to personalize it for me. So some of the things that you've said in the past, like looking into modular housing, that piques my interest as well going forward. So um, I see that there's a lot of room for development. I'm looking forward to it and I'm seeing it. And I think this is definitely going to be the place that most of our players call home.
Awesome. I did see a comment in there I wanted to highlight. It was the
Was it the
farming,
farming
wasn't
one?
it? Right. Oh boy, the farming. I come from a lot of ArcAge, and I did a ton of farming, alt farming. And the farming on here, I left. There was a friend of mine that I played with, a Swabian, and we sacrificed him and his life to the farming in FO to keep our towns going. So, we always kind of felt bad for that, but yeah, farming is going to be a fun system to revamp and make more useful. So, what type of farming system is it without being able to cook the things that you farm? Um, Anyway, we can hop back on track. So on the Kickstarter, just to kind of round out that section, there'll be small incremental updates, not just on the existing like 5 sets that you see. We're going to flesh out the concept for all of them. We'll improve that concept to provide a little bit more detail, and then start to fit that into the actual 3D asset creation going forward. There are a few more unique rewards, and that is around the sigils. Those will be unique sigils, just like it says, and we'll work with that particular backer. There was only a handful of those. So that's just the first step in all of the Kickstarter fun, and we'll continue to tease out more of that until we have everything planned and laid out. Moving on, if I can click on the right thing, we wanted to get into one of the most exciting things that I've seen so far. And these are early teases, as this acquisition is what, three weeks old, and so it's very quick turnaround from the team. And so this is very early in looking at the style that we think we are going to move to. So things can absolutely change, but this is the beginning of it. Yeah, not anime.
Anime, I saw that.
Close, but not anime. So I think, Ethan, do you want to talk a little bit about what you've seen from the existing to where the current idea around the new human male is?
Yeah, I mean, from where it was before to where it is now, obviously it's a more stylized look. You can see like through the hairdo, like the hair itself. Like that's another thing too that you guys will see in just a little bit here. There's going to be a lot of cool options, hair colors, just the character itself and the way that it's going to fit into the world. So when we show what the new vision for like the overall world's going to be, you'll kind of see where those characters are going to fit into that world. I think it's the style personally myself. I think it's a very, what do I want to say? It's a very appealing style. It's not too cartoony. It's not too realistic looking. And I think it's going to fit the world really well. And I think you guys are really going to like it. I'm psyched
Yeah.
about this. Actually made me watch Twitch account so I could, nice. That's awesome. They made their Twitch account just to watch this. That's awesome.
Welcome to the club. And
Yeah, welcome.
another question up there. The new project that we've been working on for Fractured Online. So the current existence of FO is not Unity 6, but all of the new backend work, all going forward, is Unity 6. So I'll actually cover just a couple of the things later, and we'll tease out more of these, especially as we get like before and afters. But the tech part will be towards the end. We're kind of grabbing the creative stuff. I've already seen the beginnings of the female models, and they are a much improved section. But as I mentioned first, we are focusing on quality, nailing down the beginnings of a good foundation for each of these characters. So that does lead me to say that at the current moment, and this is subject to change, as we have found that our main 3D artist for character models has been extremely fast with high quality. But the current plan is when we relaunch, it will be with humans only. Now, it's not that we want to get rid of other races. It's just we are setting a bar of quality, and we want to make sure that the races set that bar initially, and then so the next race, you know what level of quality. And so we'll tease out the beginnings of some of the hairstyles and armor, just visual variety, but quality first.
Exactly.
So moving on, this next section. The armor you will see may not fully make it in. This is really to start teasing out that art direction that Ethan was talking about in it. I don't see why it won't make it in, but
Yeah,
let's
this is
start
one
off.
of the things that excites me the most too.
I'm
Awesome.
excited for them to see this actually. Yes, same here. So if you guys see on the armor, right, you see all the little details, little knives, you have the leather, the belts, the little, dangly bits hanging off, and you've got just this really like it really immerses you into your character. You've got these just the more detail that's on it, it really plays into the character. And for me, like when I look at a character like the ones before, they were cool, but they were nothing like this. We really went through and we added a lot more detail to the characters. We've and as you see, you're about to see a bunch of different variations of colors just to give you guys an idea and let your imaginations run wild with what we're going to be able to do going forward with these characters.
Yeah, and I'll see if I can drag up an old one as
Yeah,
well.
that'd be
Should have
great
put
if
that
you
in.
could do that. Yeah, just to kind of show the before and after of just how much has been changed.
See if we can edit this on the fly.
We're gonna do it on the fly. We're doing it on the fly, you guys. We're doing it live. That's what we do. Yeah, we're doing it live.
Yeah, that sounds like us.
Yeah. Okay, so
So
all right. Well,
this could be one version of rogue armor. We'll just say like that. But like it's like an assassin, like a thief, rogue, whatever. But there's going to be different variations of this. This is just kind of one to kind of wet your guys' whistle to kind of just see like what is possible and what's coming in the future. This is
Yeah.
why we're so excited. Oh yeah, don't worry, we're gonna do hoods and all that good stuff, but this is what we wanted you guys to see. Look at the different color variations, and this is just using just different color palettes and running it through it, and just like it looks amazing.
yeah. And so this is the question earlier about the whole keeping the color system. No, not really. We're not going to keep the existing color system. We're going to focus on, and correct me, Ethan, as I'm a developer by nature, but we're going to focus more on complementary palettes for these color options.
All types of palettes, actually, just like we're going to be able to have different color palettes that we can apply to the armor that's going to give you different looks and feels to the armor without even changing the armor. Like to me personally, I mean, I'm looking at with like the purple cloth and the different leather pieces, and like then you look at the other one over here, they all can just serve different purposes. And I love transmog, I love dyes, I love all that stuff. So this is beautiful.
And,
I mean,
the
and
sneaky hair options, if anyone noticed from the last to this one. We'll talk a little
Yeah.
bit more about hair in a second.
yeah, and if I could stick in real quick, keeping in mind a lot of this is about customization. You're going to be able to personalize your character. You're going to be able to immerse yourself further into your character with the way this is going. So it's huge.
That right there, we're gonna you said it is you said it is it one color option per armor, or does it have options like a primary, a secondary color, stuff like that? How detailed can we get? As we keep developing and working on what we're doing, we'll be unveiling that, in our weeklies and stuff like that, so you guys can kind of see like where we're going with it. And I'm just going to tell you, you guys will be happy. We're all gamers here. We all been playing MMOs since we were super young, and we know what we want in a game, and this is what we want. We want to be able to customize. We want to be able to do these things and really make our character our character.
And like it's a shout out to the old Guild Wars 1 die system. That was one of the first like early games that everyone was hunting for, the black die so you could dye different pieces of armors. And so yeah, we've been around, we've seen a lot of different options, and there's a lot of inspirations to pull from, but making sure the mechanic is something that best fits the game is important to us. So here's the outcome, and how we get there is something that we'll unveil more. So we'll go through the armors and I'll hop over to questions real quick. This is teasing out a little bit more of what can be done from a color perspective, other than just, sneaky darker rogue colors. There is, a brighter orange in there. And to be honest, it surprisingly looks very good for having such a bright color. If you look at the current FO and the colors that come out of that, it takes away from the style and the feeling of the armor, because it's so bright. Does it kind of fit naturally? Ethan, you may have a better, more elegant
I
way of
mean,
putting it.
I'm personally I love the one on the right. That's one of my favorites. I think the way that the artist created everything and the made the materials the way that they are, you if you look closely and you look at the different color combinations, you can actually see like the armor itself actually looks different itself. Like some looks like it's worn down, some looks like it's brand new. It's really, really it's really well done. And we're basically just changing colors. We're picking palettes and changing colors, and it's actually pretty awesome to see how good this is working. Do the boots act
Yeah.
as water collectors to refill water bottles?
Yeah, that's why I was just laughing. That's the reason why I looked down and touched my nose. I was like, oh my,
That's
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So there are two things that will be going away, and we're working on the systems that will replace it. I'll link to that. Um, I very much dislike the existing hunger and energy system, and I've always preferred, and I think most players prefer, positive systems that can be tied into other crafting things. Hypothetically, if you reverse in a design, if you reverse the hunger system's intention and make it a positive effect, where eating items that are cooked and crafted by players give you positive buffs, you feel better about what you're doing. You feel better about going and collecting things. Right now, whenever I go to do anything, I am the one that forgets all the food at the base, and then I end up starving in another continent. Um, and the energy system, I think, as well, has to go and be placed with more of, and we're still deciding this, but the goal was to reduce the amount of like consistent grinding that you could do, as you would have to go back and refill your stamina at a campfire, etc. There's other ways to do that that is less. All of a sudden, now I'm in the middle of nowhere. My character's slow, and now I'm just crawling to a campfire, and I can't find those small stones, which is the hardest currency in the game to find. That's actually the end game is collecting stones in FO. Um, to make a campfire and you're going a snail's pace, that doesn't feel as good. And if we look at other inspirations out there where they've tied the mechanics from combat, like over time, and they've tied it into other social systems as well, very nicely. And we're looking at, things like that. How can we make it more enjoyable and less painful?
Yeah, and this
So,
is one of the changes that I'm looking forward to because it's going to take it from a grueling process to a more immersive process. So you're going to be able to um, use the food and other things. Um, and instead of having to run back to the campfire, we've all been in that situation in Fractured Online where you're just kind of inching along, and it's not fun.
yeah, definitely. So real quick, one more question, and we'll hop back over to this slide that's up. The new artwork looks great, but for the game loop was the biggest issue for me. I really enjoyed the dopamine hit from leveling characters. It felt great unlocking new skills and seeing my character grow. That part of the progression was engaging and satisfying. I know the new art is exciting, but people didn't stop playing due to the art. It was a game loop and in-game mechanics. Absolutely. The art draws people into a game, but the mechanics and systems and loops and social interactions keep people playing a game. And that's really where that engagement comes from. So the issue with showing mechanics, especially as you're still discussing some of those, is they're not fully baked in where we may want to go. We have a lot of some of these core ideas already uh, fleshed out, especially around the class and skill type system, but we have to present that in a very clear and concise way. And sometimes when we have our discussions internally, we are still a little misaligned. And so we're nailing that down and working on that communication so that we can ensure like everyone understands why and how we got to this and why we think this system going forward is good. And then how can we collect feedback? If we're all trying to get on the same page because we poorly communicated that or a piece of it wasn't quite baked, then we do everyone a disservice in the community. But what we can talk about earlier on is some of the visuals. So that's the reason why you seem a little bit more visual. Then towards the end, there's also some development focus early on that we're doing to set the foundation. And we'll catch up on some of the questions, but want to talk through some of the hairs a little bit. So you saw two of the hair options, and this is the third. And what we really wanted to focus on with this is the identity of a character is really important to us going forward. Even Will had mentioned it as well. And to me, hair is one of those ways that you express that. The current FO's hair options are a little limiting. Some of that is to keep like performance, things like that. So we'll have to work on optimizing some of these more higher poly sculpted hairs. But in the modern day graphical expectations, like this hair right here is actually what I would be picking. This is a fantastic set of hairs. And so this is just another kind of closer up image of one of those three hairstyles. And then being able to look at your traditional like hair coloring. So not only do you have better quality of hair, but also the same type of color system that you would expect, just like we were talking about from the armors. So we'll take a pause here, as this next session is going to be the spiciest of the sections going forward, including from our own dev team. We've been doing a lot of back and forth around this. So I'll take a look at the questions real quick. Ethan, Will, hop in if there's anything that you see.
Yeah. I've been answering some of the questions, but
Yeah.
I think one of the questions that popped up that people are interested in is if this is a full-time job for everybody.
Oh, yeah. I meant to go back to that one. So it is a full-time job to a large portion of the studio, and it is a part-time to the other studio, some of the members. So most of the studio members are full-time, and a couple are not. And then as we flex resources and pull in different resources for the appropriate thing, as do all studios of this size, and honestly, even up to AAA, it's always surprising to learn how many teams in a AAA game are contractors or co-dev partners, and they'll flex for a project or a piece of a project and then go away. So we will be leveraging that same type of system. So it is not just a passion project. It is a significant amount of money that I am very dedicated. And if everyone on the project is very dedicated to this project from a passion perspective.
Absolutely. I think all of us are very dedicated to this community. As far as I'm aware, all of our developers that have been part of the development team as well as part of the community team, like myself, a lot of us are vets. I mean, you started in 2021 too, according to Swabian. So all of us have been here for at least 4 years, and some of us have been here longer, and we've been committed to the community and growing the community. So definitely a lot of passion. We do have another question. Will this migration involve something like a 2.0 ALA Final Fantasy when they had a new team? They're asking what kind of reboot are we looking towards?
Yeah, so it is the FF14 reboot. As I had the founder pack in one of my boxes, I'm not in my normal office, I'm traveling right now, but I have my my character's birth certificate in FF14, and I went through that 1.0. I think that there was one completely different scale and one, awesome cinematics that we don't have. But the core idea is the same. There will be a period in which we will shut down to focus all resources on the relaunch. And then when the relaunch happens, it is a full wipe. The systems are different. The progression is different. So things can't be mapped over. So you could think of it as like the indie version with the less cool director, that doesn't have as awesome hair. But when we look at models to inspire us to go through this project, we're looking at Sean Murray and the No Man's Sky. We're looking at FF14, and where they really just were dedicated to making sure the players got the experience that they wanted. Another question on where will the service be located. We are working on that, although we are going to be very focused on, we're going to plan for this to be a success, and that each region, large region, should have a deployment as the game systems, and we'll talk a little bit about the input later, will be much more latency conscious. And so we want to make sure like we're not playing with 200 to 300 ping like I know quite a few people are. And we'll adjust and go from there. But we are absolutely planning on success where each of the 3 regions will be able to sustain their own population. Will the current servers stay up until the reboot? There will be a period of time in which they are shut down. This is one thing I didn't cover earlier, as we are 4 weeks into this acquisition, and there's still services that haven't quite migrated over, and some things, just keeping an open transparency on these processes, they're not easy at any scale. When we look at the hosting of servers, Dynamite Studios is the European studio. HCG is a American studio, and so there are regulations, and we essentially have to redeploy architecture and things like that, which we were doing anyway, but we have to deploy those into a new account. So there will be a period of time in which things are shut down. One more question, and then we'll get to this very spicy. I know section. I know Ethan is chomping at the bit to talk about this section. So it is too early to ballpark a release date. I first want us to all get on the same page around the milestones that are important, that are needed for this launch, communicate that to everyone, and then start to track where we are in progress to those milestones. And then the next kind of logical step is that those milestones are completed. Now it's kind of prep for launch. And then previously, Jacopo mentioned that ping should not be a huge problem in combat. Is this still the case, or will it be more action combat-y? We are moving to a more action combat system. I'll go ahead and cover it, and we'll skip it from later. Sorry, Ethan, we'll put you just on hold for a second. We are currently experimenting with the WASD movement to have a more action combat experience that's expected out of modern day ARPGs. And so far, I have a test that's up, and I didn't even have like good animations in there. And I naturally just wanted to use WASD to move my character around, and it felt good, even though they were sliding around and it looked hilarious. So we will hopefully really quickly be able to start showing some of that progress and how that feels. But not only is your character identity important, but the game should feel much more involved whenever you're fighting monsters. Right now, I can go up to a monster with a 2-handed greatsword, and I will largely swing for a while. And the PvE experience, has a lot to be gained there. And so moving to the system changes so many things, from skills to the pace of combat. And there's just a lot that's behind that. And that's the reason why we haven't talked about it all that much, other than just like what I did, which is high level. This is what we're experimenting on. The other side of this is feedback. As we open up testing in a small portion for each of these kind of pillar features, testing and getting feedback on this. Also, that's what drives the latency need. We have to get latency lower to make that feel good. Imagine if you're playing, Path of Exile on 200-300 ping and you're trying to attack other people. It just wouldn't feel good. Or, any modern action RPG, it just needs more. The existing combat system was built in a way that it was kind of tolerant to high ping, and they did a great job with that. But we are changing that up. We believe for the better, but feedback would say one way or another. And the keys will be rebindable too. Sorry, reading the question. All right, Ethan.
So I want to preface before we do go into this, just so you guys can understand what you're about to see. What you're going to see right now is not in the actual Fractured online game environment. This is actually in the Unity 6 environment. And this is kind of like the way that I like to kind of gray box, or we'll say almost it's like a 3D mood board. And so what this is going to show you is level of detail. It's going to show you some cool things that I'm going to mention. I think you guys will be excited about, and just the overall lighting and all that stuff. So currently what you're about to see is that, just so you're aware, these are, asset packs that we purchased and that we're working with. And, obviously we're not going to just flip these. We're literally going to go through, fix up the textures, do what we need to do with the materials and stuff like that, and repurpose them for what we need them for. But this is going to give you guys an idea of what to look forward to.
I'll add an extra caveat onto that. These may or may not at all make it into the game, but it's very important from a visual perspective for us to have things to talk about. And right now, this is the closest thing to where we think that we want to head, and we're all still getting aligned on it. So when we said transparency, this is more transparency than most studios will ever give you in this, is that we are still going through and making sure, is this kind of tree and color tone, is this what we're looking for? Should a forest feel like this? But we want to start exposing that early because it is a drastic change. And then one last thing before we get on there. If you look at RN and then you look at Terra, and then when you see this, there's actually a natural progression that the team before HCG acquired Fractured Online was already moving towards a more stylized environment. And largely the sentiment around Terra was that it was visually much better. And so we're trying to see, let's take that to the next level, because we are starting from the one focused continent. So we can get that depth of quality that we want. So yeah, pitchforks ready?
Pitchforks ready. Let's go.
Yeah. Everybody get your pitchforks.
Yeah. You can go ahead and flip it over now. Here we go. So there's a method behind the madness here. So first of all, I just want to talk about the current game and where it is right now with the current camera view that you have. It feels very enclosed. You don't really feel a lot of scale of the world or the environment whatsoever. Now, I've seen that on Terra, you feel it a lot more. You get some more scaled trees up. You have these big roots you can't interact with, so on and so forth. It's very adorable, Wild. Very adorable. So the one thing that's about this is really adding a lot more detail into the world. So, when you have POIs in the world, you want to come upon that POI and make that POI needs to feel like it fits in the world. There's a reason why it's there. It has history behind it. One of the big things that we're going to be doing going forward is hand sculpting all the POIs in the whole entire world and making them feel like they're a part of the environment. So if you find a bandit camp or if you find an orc camp or whatever, like they're going to feel like there's story to it and there's a reason why they're there in that world. Because for me as a player, one of the most disconnecting things for me is coming upon something out in the world that's just flat and it looks like it was just plopped there with some things around it and grass growing all through it, and it makes zero sense. And to me, I feel like that's one of the worst things that you can do when it comes to world design. So with this going forward, we're really going to be looking at how we can make the world tell a story. So what you're seeing here, these particular buildings that you see right here, one of the things that I wanted to point out with this is they're not one floor. You guys, they're not one floor. So I know by looking at what's there right now, a lot of stuff is one floor. And so we're looking hopefully in the future to go to more than one floor. So then we can go inside of houses, go upstairs, go up to attics, so on and so forth, stuff like that. Really cool things to look forward to. You can go to the next slide.
Yeah, and I'll say right now, Andre, as we've had these conversations back and forth, like one of the developers from Dynamite Studios, and we've had this conversation before, it will take some work to be able to support multi-story. This is the vision of kind of what we want to get to for that scale. And so it may not be available right away, and it's not an easy system to implement, but it can be done. And I think it's something that we need to do going forward. So hence showing.
That would be the goal, Galatorn. I'm not going to lie. That would be an amazing goal, and that's something that we're going to work towards, and to have a very, very cool building system. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Once again, you guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Literally, we've been working on this part right here for maybe a week, if that. right? Literally brainstorming and going over these things and trying to figure out like the best path moving forward. So yeah, can you show the next slide, please?
Yeah. And chaos, we'll come back to that, but it is the housing system's a triggering topic. So
Yeah, that's one thing I do want to announce. I want to talk about real quick with the housing. Right now, houses in Fractured Online are glorified storage closets. That's not how they should be. Everything in that house should be usable. You should have curios, you should have dressers, you should have all these different things, and you can use those to store things, not 20,000 chests on your floor where you've got to weave in and out of them. It's insane to me that that's like that. So we are going to fix that 100%. We are going to make homes again, where you guys will be proud to show your homes off and have these home shows and decorations and stuff that you're getting out in the world and bringing back and putting in your home. Yeah, that gives me goosebumps, by the way. I got them. I can feel them.
You should have them. I mean, like that is something that really even every player of Fractured Online wants is more availability to customize the home and usable furniture. That's another thing that they want. So like the ability to customize your home, absolutely, we all love it.
Wild, you're still going to get storage, but your home won't be a glorified storage container. Your whole home will be a storage, and all the different things you'll have in there will be like almost like a chest. You can open up a curio and store things in there. You can open up a dresser and put things in there. You can, stuff like that. That's going to make sense when you decorate your home. And yeah, I think that's cool. All right, we're going to go to the next one. So what I want you guys to look at here at this next one, this is really just more showing off the lighting and the detail in the lighting and just the overall world itself. Now, obviously, the one that you see on the far right at the bottom, we're not going to really see that view. Who knows, one day we might, but right now we're not going to see that view. But you can just get an idea of just the overall detail of the world itself, the lighting. It feels very inviting. It's not very like there's a lot of contrasting to it, and there's a lot of color to it, and it's very inviting, very detailed. These are what we're going to be going for, is this level of detail.
Yeah, and there was a question earlier, like, will this be more demanding on systems? So there is going to be this trade-off, as currently FO is on a older like rendering pipeline. There's a lot of foundational things moving forward that gives us opportunities to optimize. I'm not saying it will just naturally out of the box be more optimized, but it gives us the capabilities to be more optimized. But most likely there will be some more demand as we move this essentially into a more modern day graphics like expectation.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's going to be a give and take. We're going to be stepping up the visual quality of the game itself. There's going to be a give and take to that. But it's going to be worth it. And trust me, we're going to be in the background doing as much as we can to optimize it to the fullest that we can possibly do. And we will make sure that it is a great experience for people playing it. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
And there's a question on rotating the camera as well. We're experimenting with the camera being rotate, like where you can rotate.
Yes.
There's a lot to how that feels, and we'll be sharing that. It's part of the new input system, so you'll see those two things come together.
Will the world map change? Okay, so the actual like overall shape of the world map is not going to change. There's going to be a lot of detail put into the world map. That means that all the POIs and everything that you guys are still familiar with will be there, but it's going to be completely different, meaning like it's going to look like it belongs there. It's going to look like there's a story to it, and that's why it's there. You're going to discover it and be like, oh my gosh, like I remember coming here and this is insane. Like this is a totally different place. That's the whole point, and that's what we want to do going forward, is give you that feeling of rediscovery of a world you already know.
And like I
no,
told
Mirror is
you,
dead to us.
yeah,
No Mirror.
that's what I was about to say.
Sorry. I did not experience Mirror. I've seen some of the screenshots, but Mirror is dead to us. Jacopo will not let us resurrect that thing back. No, we want to make better going forward anyway. Jokes aside. All right.
And the last one, we can go to the last one. This is just a more of a close up, just to kind of give you guys an idea of the detail, the colors, and all that stuff. And like I said before, I want to preface it again. This is Unity 6 that we're in here, and these were just I put this together just as a more of a mood board to try to figure out like just look and feel and just how things are going to fit into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Obviously,
that's the plan going forward.
shadows and things like that consume a lot of like compute resources. They're very performance intensive, and so there's going to be this balance going forward. It's always easy to have a much smaller scale, but later this week even we're beginning to test in the main continent and start to say, what does this density of trees impact on performance? How we can leverage some of the latest things to uh, stay as optimized as possible, but we'll begin to get better benchmarks around the before and after visually, as well as the resource intensity, and we'll be communicating that to everyone.
Yeah, and I know that's a hot topic for all of our players because the current version of Fraction Online is very GPU intensive. So
Yeah. So every game that's ever promised the most optimized experience has always seemed to fail in that. So we will just take it piece by piece and ensure that we're trying to do it the best that we can on that. But yeah, my 4090 does not like FO currently. So
I think Seth Gaines has a good question there, Duncan. So I know you guys
okay,
will
yep.
be reworking the towns and plots completely, but would the game allow for building houses everywhere or just specific places around towns and predefined plots as they were recently?
this is something that we're almost to the point of being ready to talk about. Um, yeah, so I don't want to really. We're still at the last piece of nailing down that design, but I would say that you're heading in the right direction.
That
But
just means you
So
got to come to the weeklies.
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. That's what I
exactly.
was about to say. Come to the weekly Q&As. Make sure that you tune into the Discord, and we actually have a channel dedicated to it. We're going to have some Discord changes coming up real soon, and make sure you post that question. And if it doesn't get answered, post it again. We'll add it to the next Q&A and the next one until we can get you an answer.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I'm pretty straightforward in Discord and on these topics. We're either, we're not ready to discuss it or we will be discussing it. Like, there's no holding back or sugarcoating on these things. Right now, there's still some kind of key technical things that we have to work through on making sure the design going forward will, one, fit a populated server, and that it doesn't cause issues. It doesn't cause undue server stress. And what happens if every plot is taken up or every spot is taken up? And so there's just a lot of considerations to that.
So are we doing more questions or?
We're really to kind of the end. I'll highlight a few things. I'm actually going to, in the next session, we'll talk more detailed on these pieces, but I do want to switch to a couple slides. So that was more kind of the creative update. And not every time we do these videos are we going to have, both creative and development updates. And some will be slower than others. The pace at which we're communicating will probably outpace our actual development. So there'll be times in which we'll focus on questions, that side of the house. But when it comes to development update, I'll be posting a video inside the Discord as well. I wasn't able to get it onto this stream setup very easily, but we have made substantial progress on the backend migration. This is something that Jacopo has been pretty much focusing his life on. And we have the spell system, movement, attacking, and in the short little video, we'll show you how much is actually on the new backend. And in normal games, whenever a backend setup, so the kind of networking aspect of a game is no longer supported, that's often the end of a game. It's such a major effort to move to another engine. And this is something that even before the acquisition, we discussed as we have to get this done as quickly as possible. It's the foundation of everything going forward. And the progress they've made in such a short time with the coherence platform has been astounding. And so that video will show some of the core things that you're used to seeing in FO, but on a completely new back end, which is no easy feat. It is time intensive. And this will give us the opportunity to leverage new supported tech that can do many of the things that the previous tech could not to support players in this big world that we have. So we'll be showing more of these little development videos, especially as they get closer to testing. With the new backend, we want to begin testing some of these. What is the player cap on these particular things? Server types, things like that. So we'll need people running around causing trouble. There are a series of graphics updates. So I'll cover some of the high level, and you'll start to see these in our environment type updates. All right, my slideshow stopped moving. All right, we'll talk to them. So really, lighting is a big thing in Unity 6, and moving to the new renderer system, renderer pipeline. So we're moving from what was called the built-in or the standard Unity renderer to the URP renderer. And with that, it gives us things like a decal system so that we can actually put proper looking textures onto the ground. For example, whenever the ground slam move happens, it just sometimes if you're on a slight hill, it floats as it's just spawned there. But being able to actually put that onto the ground. Part of the world identity and having immersive environments is all about lighting and fog and being able to control visual effects and all of those things. We have more capabilities in this new pipeline. So say all those things and we'll have more before and afters as we go through it. But the key is we're spending an initial amount of time laying the foundation going forward. So you won't see some of the same things in current FO because we now have capabilities to do better looking skill effects that are more performant. But we have ways to do better looking lighting and fog and atmospheric things in areas. So you'll start to see those. Most people consider them details. They don't really think about them, but they add a lot to how it feels when you play the game.
Yeah, I've gotten to see some peaks of these, and as a veteran player, I'm super excited by what I've seen. So when you guys see it, you'll be happy.
Yeah, so especially with the slides deciding that it's the end of their time, it was also nearing the end of our expected time, so we can take questions for a few more minutes, and then we're always active in Discord and every weekly Q&A. Are there any questions right off the top that I did not cover that we should? On the new maps, no, we'll actually be reducing maps. So right now you have RN and Terra. Now you will just have RN going forward. And this is part of that reducing scope to focus on quality.
Now, there was a question that wasn't answered. I'm not sure that you can answer it yet. I know that you're still designing stuff out. What's your opinion about the PvP restrictions introduced by Endgame Changer?
My opinion on them really doesn't matter because going forward, PvP will look very different. I've hinted at this in the past. We are currently exploring 2 main setups. We'll have detailed sessions around that as we are nearing the lockdown. I wouldn't say lockdown as a hard thing, but design-wise, close to lockdown. And that is going to be, faction PvP, and then what will be the new node in guild PvP. One of the big things that got me excited during Kickstarter was the plan to have players, cities, and resource nodes to be incredibly meaningful. Is there any plan to revert back to this? Yes. So part of the whole, what I'd say is the core system that we are overhauling is, that infamous progression system. And the progression has so many tendrils into all these other systems that we have to be really buttoned up on how it impacts and what would present itself through every other system, progression and crafting. What is the progression as your character levels up? What is the progression in reputation or god progress and things like that? And ensuring that all these systems tie together so that you can feel an interconnected, not isolated experience. So when we look at resource nodes, they will be different, but they're key to the progression going forward. Right now, part of the issue, and I've mentioned this in the videos before, players typically churn out, at least for my observations, around the 2 to 3 week mark because you can largely skip all of the options as it was more of a horizontal design for resources and crafting to support PvP. And that means that there's a lot of content, a lot of resources that are just left out if they're not meaningful and you can skip to the end.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
About the spells, is
Right.
it planned to keep the sheer amount of spells that the game currently has, or will spells be reduced in quantity and variations? So this is part of the class and skill system revamp. Revamp is probably not a near a big enough word for it. Complete redesign. Um, I will say that you can have hundreds of options of skills and it feel like you don't have the option to really use those because they're not viable in PvE or PvP. And we've seen over and over that quantity does not equal quality in how those skills feel. And so whenever you're trying to build an identity around a particular weapon and skill set, you largely miss the mark on that, getting that feeling together. So we are looking at what does it feel like to have a smaller selection of skills, to have a stronger identity with some options. And we can discuss that more as we nail down that system. That's part of that. We have to be really careful in how we communicate it because it can be very confusing. But we are focusing on quality on the spells. They should feel good, should help reinforce your character's identity.
We got a question on Mac and PC. Is it going to be available for both?
I think we currently build for PC. This is something I'll have to work with the team on to even look at, but I don't think we will be dedicating time towards Mac. I think currently it works. It's just a byproduct.
Okay.
But I'll be honest, I don't really use the Mac ecosystem, and so what it takes for us to officially support Mac, and most developers don't, we probably don't have that in the cards, just to be honest. Unless it's already being handled and I just am not aware of it. Still learning what years and years and years of a code base and pipelines, like build pipelines supports. So it could be hidden away, but I doubt it. This question here is very important. I'm sorry if you guys already talked about this. What is the plan for more solo play? We have not talked about it. We want to flesh this out in more detail as we get to more of the PvE systems. But we definitely believe that there's a place for all three types of play. Solo, group, can kind of go with guild, and then I've got a big group of people, we want to go bash things. And so we're trying to fit those into the new design, but absolutely, you should be able to enjoy the game for the most part without a group. Now there will be, this is a social sandbox, so there will absolutely be core systems that really need other people. But we want, for example, faction PvP in other games, not exactly saying how we're looking at it working here, but faction PvP was always that I don't have a group that may be consistent, but I still want to play in PvP. I want to sign up to be yellow team, and we can bond as a ad hoc group because they're yellow guys and we're going over to here to kill or take over something from the red guys. That is a kind of an emergent gameplay that allows a solo player to become temporarily a part of a group content.
Is there an overreaching vision of what you want Fractured to be? More immersive, obviously, but what is it meant to be? I think you've covered part of this.
Covered part of it, but it's always hard in a social sandbox to like nail down the details of how everyone looks at through their lens at what something like this is. And I would say that Fracture Online should be that game that you can go play when you're wanting to relax and gather and craft things, chat with people, or just go do things on your own. It should be that game that you can build an identity, a space in the world, and a look and feel that you feel happy with. You should be able to be a part of a community. And whether or not that is just decorating, like other games in the past, or whose house looks the coolest, and how do they get that particular thing to look good inside their house, all the way to I'm part of a group of players that just love capturing points from other players. It should be multifaceted in the way that you can play, depending on everyone's day in day out lives. They change. Not everyone's PvP all the time. So my vision is that it is a just like any of the social sandboxes in the past. It's a home in which players can spend time and not feel like their progress is wasted. And while it may not have the incredible depth of a single player like a CRPG or the expansiveness of a pure sandbox survival game without the RPG elements and things like that, we're going to take some of the best things like Diamond Studios was working on doing and execute with quality on those to make that home for players. But that journey is built with you as well. So what does a social sandbox home feel like?
I also want to kind of expand on something what we were talking before about the housing and stuff. One of the biggest things right now that I see when I go around the game is I see the house and it's full of things, and then I see around the house and it's full of things. It's kind of like you're having a garage sale or something's going on constantly. And the one thing that I look at that and I think, my gosh, like that, you know, not only is it ugly, but at the same time, I think it's very it's just very it feels weird to me. Like what the plan is going forward is instead of having three, processing machines outside of your house, you're going to have one that kind of looks like it's going to evolve. It's going to go from, a normal version to an upgraded version to an upgraded version, but it'll be able to fit in your home and look cool, and it'll feel like it belongs there. I think that was a big thing. One of the things that I saw running through and looking at everything was like, okay, how can we do this? So obviously, we haven't really talked a lot about the player housing or any of that stuff yet, but you can guarantee going forward in the future that we're going to make it to where even the smallest home will fit everything that it needs to fit perfectly. I wanted to throw that out there.
Oh yeah, and that's absolutely important.
Just in terms of will they have whatever VIP system comes next, or will it be moot? We will have a discussion on monetization. I did have, and I accidentally skipped over it earlier, covered part of it. There's not going to be, there will not be pay to win, pay to progress, crypto or NFTs in this. The shop will be purely cosmetic, or the potential, not saying it's going to be in there, but maybe a race change or something like that. But it will not provide an advantage over other players. And that does cut out a large portion of revenue. A lot of games make revenue from selling gold or selling power, uh, and that's just not going to be that path forward. What VIP will look like, we haven't quite finished that design yet, if or what it would look like. But at the core of this question is the concern around compensation around that. So if it does go away, there will be compensation around that, and those details, would be talked about. I'm just saying we haven't figured out if it is or isn't going away in the exact monetization structure. you're absolutely right. MMOs are very hard to monetize. Player base has changed over time too. So, a long time ago, the best way to monetize a game was a sub fee. It meant that the design of the game was not impacted by any money. And it was just, did we make a game good enough that you would pay a monthly fee for? And largely, player base has shifted over in times to free to play things like that. So we're evaluating all those options. Yep. So what about the players who believed in the game? What happens to the eternal counts? So we started to discuss earlier around the Kickstarter rewards. We're going to continue to go step by step in that as they tie into different systems on what that looks like. So over the next few weeks or so, you'll have a complete snapshot, and we'll go back and summarize that too. What is the Kickstarter? What is the existing founder packs? What does it mean now going forward? We'll have a section coming up. I don't know if it will be next week, but in the next couple of weeks, that will cover monetization as a whole. Anything else? I think we're a little bit over time on the original. So I would say, not dodging the VIP questions, there's just some more details that we have to work out and what that means.
Yeah, and I'll be going through and reviewing this, and to the best of my ability, I'm going to try to find any questions that weren't answered and push those into a Q&A for us.
I just want to say thank you to all you guys that came out here tonight, and you came here to listen to what we had to say, and we really appreciate that. You guys have no idea how much we appreciate that. We know that this community's been through a lot, and we're here to make things good. We're here to have a good time and really make something amazing and cool together. So, just once again, thank you to all you guys that came out. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and thank you for going on this journey with us.
We will see everyone in the videos in Discord as we continue to answer Q&As, but we have a pretty consistent communication schedule going forward. Some will be light, some will be more packed, but what you can guarantee is that we will be talking and communicating with everyone.
Absolutely.